So my name is Eric Leung, and I'm the director of bands here at Oregon State University. A Wind Ensemble is a relatively new kind of ensemble. It stemmed from the Eastman kind of model with Fred Fennell, where he thought that instead of doing these kind of large concert band style ensembles, he would pare everything down to about one player per part, whether that was orchestral winds or saxophones, percussion, stuff like that. And so that dated to about 1950 or something like that. But our wind ensemble here follows roughly the same model, although we do increase the number of clarinets and flutes. But other than that, most of our instruments, most of our players are one player per part. And it also involves really flexible instrumentation. So a lot of our pieces may not call for alto saxophone, and so those players aren't needed, for that piece. So there is this kind of flexibility of instrumentation that I believe the modern wind ensemble really encapsulates. We do, like traditional band repertoire all the way to music that was written yesterday. The CBDNA is the College Band Directors National Association. It's a cohort of university and college band directors from across the United States and Canada. And so it's a very, big organization. And they host these bi-yearly national conferences. And the national conference always kind of rotates between different locations. And on years where they're not hosting the national conference, they host regional conferences. And there are, I believe, 4 different regions, of which we are a part of the Western Northwestern Division. The Western Northwestern Division is the biggest division in the CBDNA in terms of just like number of universities and population size. And it's a huge deal. It's a wonderful place for all of us colleagues to gather, but it's also a wonderful place for us to listen and celebrate all of the great music that is being performed and written for our groups. At this point, it's about getting them comfortable playing the entire set in a variety of locations.
Need a ride?
So we're doing 3 pieces. The Timpani Concerto, Storm Chasers, is what it's called. The second movement is called Bittersweet, and that is going to feature our percussion professor, Bob Brodvig, as well as our associate director of bands, Olin Hannum, and they're going to be presenting this piece to our audience. And this piece, Storm Chasers, is very interesting. There's many layers inside of it, but the piece itself is depicting the geological and weather-related events that happened in Australia in terms of the work itself. It's a beautiful piece, and I'm just really excited about sharing that with people too. So, Run to the Light, in many ways, is autobiographical for the composer, and it's really about his journey from not knowing what his life would be like in a career for music, and then going off and experiencing music at the Eastman School of Music. And so there's a lot of energy, a lot of rhythmic drive. The composer is a percussionist, and so it does feature 2 solo percussionists that switch from marimbas into battery percussion, which makes for a really compelling piece. Jonathan Newman's symphony, My Hands Are City, is one of the older pieces on our set list. It was composed in 2009, and My Hands Are City is a very interesting piece of music because it draws references to beat poetry, to photography of Robert Frank, as well as the music of Miles Davis, Charlie Parker. And so this piece folds in all of these elements. But the piece itself is this large scope, 3-movement work. that really develops this idea, kind of going back to the first piece, the Run to the Light, is this idea of overcoming obstacles, of the movement from darkness to light. At the end of this symphony, it ends with this massive E-flat major chord, which is a direct homage to Holst's First Suite in E-flat. Yeah, I think we're definitely on the end game now.
Skills right now is that class is going to be awesome.
What is happening? Didn't hear any of that.
Yeah, we did 5 some odd performances of the piece, which is like every time we perform the piece, it just gets better and better. And so I think that's been like the key ingredient this last month. So it's going to be very similar to Prax, where percussion is going to be quite loud, and that the hall isn't that deep. And so it's really just like kind of adjusting dynamics, especially for our percussion, but it's also just to make sure that there's going to be all the fast playing, just really requires just a little bit more lightness and precision. I think like the idea of playing in a new space, even for myself, is a foreign concept. Like I just assume like you just play and like you just do what you do. Right, and I think like as I've gotten older and more experienced, I've thought a lot about like how the spaces translate into our own performances. As any trip, there's always unexpected things that happen. But the kids have been really, easygoing, flexible, adaptable, which is great. And I feel like they've really bonded, on this trip. And so it's good to just see that, as they get like closer and closer together. I'm hoping that it also translates into just them playing better with each other. I'm just really proud of the kids. I'm really proud of them.
Oh, I don't even have it. Love that for us.
Just wing it.
Yeah. So, first off, happy spring quarter.
Yeah.
So, I don't know about for you, but for me, performing at CBDNA is a bit of a milestone professionally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like, it felt weirdly normal. You know what I mean?
It did feel weirdly normal.
Like stepping onto stage.
Yeah.
It was like I know that this is a big deal, but it just feels kind of like a normal concert. Like we've done this enough times.
Yeah, we've done it enough times. Yeah, and I think it felt good to have that sense of like, okay, well, this is just going to be normal.
Yeah.
And it was really, really good because beforehand, like John Lynch came up to me, and was saying like, Eric, you're going to play in front of the most supportive audience that you've ever had before. And I was like, oh, that feels so good.
Yeah.
Just to know that.
Right. Like that was like the Lakuta, the one that I was doing, is like, it's not what I would describe as like a super audience accessible piece.
Yeah.
But that audience.
Oh, they loved it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they
like
totally loved it.
That's the audience
Right.
for a piece like
Yeah.
that. The Newman,
yeah,
same
and
thing.
same with the Newman. Yeah.
So was the hall? Did it sound the way you expected it to?
Yeah, I think it did sound the way I expected it to. You know, like kind of tall ceilings like Prax, but you know, like not that deep.
Yeah.
You know,
and there
like-
was no. It surprised me there was no fly space.
Right. There's no fly space. Yeah.
Yeah, which is normally like a sound suck.
Right.
In
Yeah,
halls like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, I think like having the opportunity to go into Prax and do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They understood like, okay, what we have to do
Right.
in order to play in this space.
Right.
And I think they did a really amazing job.
Yeah. People started understanding like the delicacy that you have to play with on
Yeah.
that stage.
Yeah. And to be honest, like I've never really thought about that until getting into Prax.
Because in the Stewart Center, it's kind of like you kind of just get up there like Babe Ruth and
Right,
point
you
to the
just play.
rafters, right?
You just play.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, and there's very little kind of like, all right, let's nuance this, let's do this.
So how did they do? How did they react to the moment?
Right before we started the Newman, I got up on the podium and I remember just like looking out and just feeling like a sense of like warmth and camaraderie, you know, and just like thinking to myself, like, I'm just gonna enjoy, you know, this next half an hour. And it was like this really wonderful moment of just like kind of settling myself.
That's a feeling that I don't think a lot of people understand. Is like people will talk to you after a concert
Yeah.
and they'll ask like, how does it feel for this mountain to have been summited? But really, if you're there, the
Yeah.
mountain is summited before the downbeat, and then you just get to have a good time.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
feeling of standing there with silence in the air,
Right.
I love that feeling.
Right. And it's just like there's this confidence of just like, this is gonna be great.